Hello, hello, and welcome to another Floaty Boat stream. Hey Seth, I'm doing good, man. You're right on it today. As soon as it started, it's good to see you, man. Um, let's see. I guess one of the first things I should probably do is say that on Monday, I don't believe I will be streaming. I have a business meeting that's gonna be at the same time I usually stream. So unfortunately, probably not streaming Monday. It's gonna be a longer weekend again. Um, you're not doing anything right now, just browsing Twitch. That's cool, man. um, yeah. Trying to think if there's any other like news to talk about or anything before we like jump into stuff. I do kind of feel like I'm forgetting something, but I think we'll figure it out as we go. Today's plan is the last couple of days we've been doing some game development stuff. And I kind of want to keep doing that. And we've been skipping doing images and audio because I essentially said it would take, probably more than just you to do that, unless, you specialize in like programming and music and art somehow, but not a lot of people can do that. And you don't have to be the best artist in either art or music to create things for games, but uh, generally, if you're trying to make like a quality game, you want to find people that have kind of dedicated their like life to that field, right? Um, I feel like I'm just talking nonsense. Yeah, so in the games we've made, we haven't done images or audio, so I want to show you guys how you can do that a couple different ways in both HTML, JavaScript, and in our Java games as well. So we might be kind of running around a little bit, showing different stuff. I kind of want to show you some programs that you can use as well to like make art or audio or music or whatever you're like planning on making. I don't have extensive knowledge of these programs. I'm a very programming focused guy. But I have been kind of dabbling in art stuff. Like I did draw Fuchan or Funachan here. In the bottom right corner, however, I did not draw this Funachan that I'm trying to kind of circle with my mouse. That was my friend that drew that, and you can find her I believe it's her Twitter link in my about if you wanna support her. And I think she's doing great. She's been getting a lot better lately. The things she shows me these days, at like 5 years ago when I knew her, I don't think she could do. I guess that's kind of obvious, you know. um, let's see. You're here, but you probably won't pay attention. That's cool, man. If I'm like second monitor material, that's cool. All you gotta do is listen, man. Yeah, Chili is ranking up. She's I'd say she's probably, I don't know, let's say she's emerald now. She's almost diamond, bro. You don't have a second monitor? You don't have money? Brother, I don't have money either. I used to. That's why I have all this stuff, but I don't got money either. I'm first monitor till your friends play with you. Boosted. Are you saying that Chili's boosted? Nah, bro. Or I'm boosted, because I would agree with that. I am boosted. All right, let's get some music going. Just gonna have something in the background. I think we'll play some Creepy Nuts. An interesting band name. All right, so in order to let's turn this down a little bit. I can't think. Okay, in order to do images and audio, obviously we're gonna need images and audio. And two programs that I recommend are Audacity and Krita, which is this one. And I just installed these programs basically. So it might take a second to open like Krita. If it's gonna open. It looks like it's loading. Oh, I got a boo. Oh, it's opening on my second monitor. That's cool, Krita. Don't worry about it, bro. You have Krita? Dope, bro. Honestly, probably one of the best art programs I know. It's like a free Photoshop. I think it's doing some installation stuff right now. Yeah, it's loading plugins. You use it to do memes? Nice. Valid use of the program. I like it because it has like the art capabilities and stuff of basically Photoshop, but then you also have the like timeline where you can do animation. So you can do animation in Krita as well. Hold on, it's like there we go. So this is Krita. And again, you can just make like a new image or something, do art stuff in here. And I actually just dug a drawing tablet out of my closet. We might try and play with that maybe a bit later, see if we can just draw something. I don't know if we'll even use it for anything, but I kind of feel like drawing today. So we will attempt to do that. I have a like screen tablet that I normally use to draw on, but that's like a completely different computer. And I'd have to set a lot of stuff up to share like OBS between the two computers, and I didn't feel like doing that either yesterday or this morning. So here we are with a drawing tablet, but we'll see what I can do with that. But yeah, let's close Krita for now. We're just gonna have Audacity open. You mostly use Paint because it's quicker. You only use Krita for more complicated stuff like drawing. I'm not gonna read the rest of that. Yeah. Um. Yeah, Paint I usually use if I'm like trying to demonstrate something to someone, just kind of give them like a tutorial on something or whatever. But Krita and think I think I have Paint Tool Sai or something like that that I've used before, but I mostly use Krita. Oh my gosh, keep getting dust on my glasses. All right, yeah, you got a chuckle out of me. He's good enough. All right, so let's kind of look at Audacity for a second. We can go to File and maybe not File, Edit, Preferences. And we can see here we have like a recording device. So I have a Blue Snowball, which is what I use to stream and stuff. And we're going to use that to record. So we're going to say, okay, and I'm going to start recording something. Hello, my name is Floaty Boat. And then we're going to stop it, right? So now we have a little audio clip here. This is left ear, right ear, I believe. Um, and then you can kind of scrub through by clicking. You can highlight. And yeah, it's just like a quick little audio editor and recorder that you can use that is free, just like Krita. If I ever show you anything on stream, just assume it's gonna be free because I don't like paying for anything. It sounds really like stingy or whatever, but I think most things should be free. That's just my opinion. And there's plenty of free tools out there. If something is paid, I will definitely tell you that it's paid. So feel free to follow along with anything that I do, even if I'm not saying if it's paid or not. I'm sure it's probably free. All right, now I have this recording. I need to add an audio source for Audacity. Let's try application audio capture, Audacity. Okay. It's gonna be Audacity. I'm gonna say match the title or find something of the same executable. Okay, let's pause this for a second. So Audacity, we're gonna move next to Spotify. Where's my, okay, there it is. So it says there's no audio. Let's try playing. Hello, my name is Floaty Boat. Hello, my name is Floaty Boat. Okay. It sounds like you guys can probably hear it, right? Monster Hunter time. See you later. Alright, man. Sounds good. Go have some fun hunting monsters. Go get a Rathalos for me. I just want to have a stream open so I can make sure audio is coming through. Because we're also going to have to add one for Chrome when I show you how to do that. So let's open Twitch, my stream, unmute. Hello, my name is Hello. Okay. And let's maybe bring that down a little bit so it's not me speaking. Hello, my name is Okay. I think we're good there. And then we said we need to add an audio thing for Chrome, right? So we're gonna open Chrome. No, I don't want you to be the default. And then we're going to add audio capture, Chrome. Okay. Chrome, this one. Okay. I'm just doing some streaming setup stuff to try and allow you guys to hear what I'm doing on my computer. If you can't hear audio, then what's the point in me showing you how to do audio, right? So we're gonna close that. Let's make a new Audacity thing. We're not gonna save this. So what's something we would use audio for in like a game? Probably some like background music, right? So what do we want to do for that? How about we let's just do some like beatbox, I guess. I don't want to like sing on stream, at least not yet. um So yeah, we're just gonna try something like gotta get warmed up. Okay. Like we'll do something like that. And then sounds so cringe. Let's maybe try this again. I don't know. I'll just record something random. As long as it plays, you guys know it works. How about that? Alright, it'll work for our purposes. Let's file. Export audio. We're gonna export to my computer. Let's do it to the desktop. Can we do other file formats? It looks like we can. If you can't, you may need to install FFmpeg on your computer. So if you're on like Linux or Mac and you install Audacity, you have to install FFmpeg and tell Audacity where that is. And you can quickly Google that and find an answer. We're gonna just call it like me.mp3 or something like that and save it. We want the entire project. I kind of ruined my voice. Do an excessive 320 kilobytes per second. Yeah, let's try and export. Looks like we have it. Let's open it with, I'll do it with Pop Player for once. It appears to be working. I know you guys can't hear it, but I can. So that is good. So we made an audio recording using Audacity. That's awesome. There's a lot of like effects that you can put on your audio tracks here. So if you want some like echo or something, some distortion, you know, there's a lot of audio editing you can do in this program. That's the purpose of it. It's not just recording audio. And again, it's free, which is crazy. A lot of media editing software is like a fortune. So, you know, I'd really take advantage of Audacity and what you can do with it. But we have this audio clip now. Let's maybe make one more audio clip. And I'm just gonna say like pew or something in it. Pew. Okay. Pew. All right. Now we can even go like this. Ugh. My voice is like shot. we can delete, we can highlight the ends and the beginning, and we can delete them. Pew. So now we just have like a little pew noise, right? Pew. And let's export that. So export audio. I will call it pew. Pew. On the desktop. Okay. Trim blank space before first clip. That sounds cool. That sounds like it would cut all the way up to the beginning of the sound. Let's try that. That sounds awesome. Open with. I want to have Pop Player be my default. Yeah, it looks like that setting completely cut all the way up until the first bit of audio, which is awesome. Okay, well, we have 2 audio clips now. You can save the project too as its own thing if you want to come back and edit it later or something. But as you can tell, I probably don't care a whole lot about these audio clips. So we're just gonna not save the project and we'll save the audio. Okay, so we have these audio clips. I'm going to just get my Funa picture for now, I think. Is it this one? When I click it, I want to open it. All right, well, I was looking for the transparent one, but I guess that one will work. Is this one transparent? I think this one's transparent. Maybe we'll go with this one. So let's copy this. And we will paste it. And we will call her Funa. And paste her on the desktop here. Okay, so we have some project files we can work with now. So I'm gonna host the thing we're gonna make here. You don't have to host in order to load audio or images, but I want people to get more familiar with hosting their files because it will open more options to them, because you can't use things like JavaScript modules unless you're hosting your service, and you also can't run things like PHP. And so if you want to host like web files, I definitely recommend XAMPP. It is probably my favorite web hosting software, like server stuff. You can install several things like Apache MySQL, FileZilla, Tomcat, and I've used all of those services before. If you're having some like access control issue with it, which I always do when I install it, you can just change the program to run in admin mode, and then you'll get these little X's instead of, I think it's supposed to be like I think it's supposed to be like a colored box or something. But it doesn't actually cause any issues with anything. You can still like start your servers and stop them and all that. So if you run into that issue, that's how you get around that. Then I also want to say Audacity, when I went to install it, there was like bundled software on the Audacity download website. Like you don't need the whole bundled thing. You can just get Audacity by itself, which is what I recommend. Krita didn't have an issue like that. You can just download that straight up and it should be what you're looking for. So yeah. What was I doing? Let's make a new folder here. And we're gonna call this image and audio, something like that. And then we're gonna make a new folder in here. We're gonna say like audio, and then a new folder. We're gonna call this like image. And then we might even make a new folder called res. And then we'll put these two in res. And res is short for resources. That's where we want to put our like audio and image files. So that's why I made this res. And then we're going to make a new text document. And we'll call it index.html. And yes, we want to change the file extension. Okay, so now that this is in our htdocs folder, we have Apache running, which it needs to be running to be able to access it like this. We can open Chrome and go to localhost / we called it image and audio, and boom, we're here. We don't see anything because we haven't added anything to the page, but we are currently looking at this index.html file. Now I want to open Zed, which is my preferred text editor. You don't need anything special to make HTML and stuff if this is your first stream. You just need a quick text editor like Notepad or something. We're gonna increase the size of this text here. This is QBORs. We don't want QBORs. We want to open image and audio. That's what we're currently working on. And we can do index.html because that's the file we're looking at here. Okay, so I guess I still need that open for now. Let's minimize this. We don't need to actively look at that. Let's get the music playing until we get some audio stuff set up. Okay. So we're on an HTML page. We're gonna say doc type HTML. We need an exclamation mark here. HTML. HTML. Head. Title. We're gonna try and get in the habit of having a title for all of these. And we need a meta tag with character set being UTF-8. And then I think there's like a lang is EN. So we know that the language is by default going to be in English. But this is probably not as necessary as the character set meta tag. And we're going to make a body. Okay. So here we have the basic layout of an HTML page. All we've done is set the title for it. So now the title is image and audio, right? Let's open the console in case we choose to do any JavaScript stuff. I guess we will be using JavaScript today, so maybe we will leave it open. Anyway, so we have a couple tags in HTML. I believe one is audio. And then we can do source. I believe I probably should have looked this up before I did the stream, but source has a source. And we're gonna point it. I fat fingered an enter button. We're gonna point it to this audio file that we did not put in here. Res. So we want our audio files to be in audio, and we want our Funa to be in image. Okay. So now that we've moved that, we can close that, open Zed again, and then now we have these audio files in audio. So let's say res /audio /me.mp3. Let's see what happens. Nothing. But if we inspect it and we look, we know there's this audio tag and there's res audio.me. What I think is we need controls. Yeah, in order to see it. So you have the audio tag. You can put a source in the audio tag, but you won't actually see it on your page until you have the controls. And you can say controls equals controls or something that's more backwards compatible, but I don't really care about that. I only try to do the like latest and greatest whatever, which is I don't know. It could be a downside to some people. I just don't want to like, I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on it. So now we have an audio with a source. And then let's pause the music for a second and play it. Okay. Well, it sounds like you guys can definitely hear it. So let's maybe bring Chrome down a little bit. Let's see, minus. Let's do the same as Audacity, so I'm not making you guys deaf. Okay. So that's one way you can add audio to your page. But most of the time, if you're making like a game, you're not gonna want to add audio to your page like this. You're gonna want to load it into memory, and then you're gonna want to play it from memory. But like this is a valid way to do it, especially if you take like controls off, right? Let's give an ID to this audio. We're gonna say like music or something. Then let's open some JavaScript down here. And I say document get element by ID, and we'll say music. I'm gonna say let music equal that. And then if I say music.play, then when I refresh the page, nothing happens, which is definitely what I expected. Let's say play failed, user didn't interact with the document first. The fuck does that mean? Uncaught, play failed, didn't interact with the document first. Let's Google this. Play failed, user didn't interact. I think, yeah. Most browsers don't allow audio or video to be auto-played anymore. That's something that I believe Google tried to introduce to the internet, and it kind of took off, and people were like, yeah, it shouldn't do that. So because we're trying to play the music immediately, it's not playing the music because we haven't done anything on the page that would say to play the music, right? So let's actually make a button. This is some of the stuff you kind of have to get used to fighting in HTML and stuff, because we're always coming out with new standards and things that make things frustrating. Type is button. We don't want it to actually do anything. Like submit a form, and then we'll just call it like but. How about that? And then we need to get a reference to the button. We're going to say let but equal document get element by ID and but. I want to listen to music, but because we're doing audio stuff, that makes it kind of rough. We're going to say but.on on click equals function. And then inside of this function, then we can say music play. So now when we refresh, there's a little button we didn't put anything inside of. Let's say play. Okay, so now we have a little play button, and when we click it, it should grab the audio source that we can't see because there's no controls on it, and it should play the audio source. So let's try that. All right, it played it. So that's what we were looking for. So if you are looking to play like music in the background of your game or something, then this is definitely something you can do. You could just put it onto the page, make it not visible like we have now, and then when you like enter the situation or whatever that you would play the music or the sound, then you can just make some sort of flag that then plays the noise. Just know that if you have like a main screen background music or something like that, that the user will need to interact with the page in some way before you are allowed to play that music. So maybe have like a game loaded, click button to start or something like that in order to actually start your game. And then you will have interacted with the browser at that point, so then you could play the main music. That, or maybe you can just have the main menu like muted, and you can have a toggle to turn on the main menu music or something. Like, it's kind of annoying that we've set things up like that, but it is what it is, I guess, you know? Not much you can do about it. And you can do some other things with audio as well. I believe you can set audio loop JavaScript. Yes. So you can say like audio or music or whatever dot loop equals true. And now if we refresh and we click it, I'm not gonna click anything. And it plays again. And it's gonna keep playing forever until we tell it to stop. Okay. That's enough of me. So it's gonna keep looping until you tell it to stop, or you tell it to stop looping, right? I believe if we make like another button, we can say stop, and we're gonna say like a but stop or something like that. So but stop. Then we can make a new listener, but stop. And I believe, I don't think it's stop. I think it's pause is what the function I'm looking for. Stop audio. Yes. So you cannot stop audio, meaning like don't play it anymore and reset the track back to the beginning. You can only pause. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say music.pause, which is going to stop it from playing, but it's gonna keep the track in the same place, right? And so if we refresh this and we click play, and then I stop it, it's gonna pause. And if I click play again, it's gonna resume where it was before. So you see how it is continuing where we were before? So if you want to actually make like a stop button, then you need to pause it, and then you need to say music.current time equals 0. So it's gonna pause it from playing, so it's not playing anymore, and then we're gonna reset the current like seconds in the timeline to 0, which is gonna bring it back to the beginning. So now it's a true stop button. And we're gonna hear that start up again. Okay. So that's some things that you can do to play around with audio that is already on the page, right? So now let's look at if you don't want to put it on the page. Maybe you want to fetch it from like an Ajax request or something like that. And so it's only going to be in JavaScript. So let's delete all of the body here. We're not going to need that anymore, and we're going to delete all this stuff too. we're gonna look up to create audio in JavaScript. Something like that. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, so we're gonna make a variable. We're gonna say let music equal, and then we're gonna say new audio. So audio is like a class that's already defined by your like JavaScript in your browser. You know, it's already part of your default libraries. And what it's gonna take as a parameter is the location of your audio clip. So we're gonna say res audio and me mp3, right? And then we can say music play. Now we might have to interact with the page again. Let's refresh. Yes, so we have to interact with the page first. So it's still getting that, it's still mad with us about that. So let's put the button back. Just to make it so we have some interaction with the page. And then we'll say, we need to give it an ID. I think we called it but equals new document get element by ID but, and then but dot on click is a function, and then we're gonna say music play. So now we don't have the audio on the page. We've loaded it dynamically into memory using JavaScript. So let's refresh, and if we click play, then it plays the audio. Let's actually switch me to be the pew. So now every time I click it, we get a little pew, 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 pew. Now you might notice if I spam it, we're only getting one pew. We're not getting pew, 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 right? That's because it's playing this same audio track. And I believe if it's already playing, it's not going to like reset it or anything. It's just continuing where it currently is, right? So if it's already playing and we say to play, it's going to be like, I'm already playing, and it's going to ignore us. But if we make a new audio clip every time we click the button, and then we play that new audio clip, then what's going to happen? It's going to overlap like that because it's new audio tracks that we're making that just are the same sound. So we're making a new one, and then we're playing the new one, is why we can overlap now. And you're gonna make that for like shooting bullets or something like that, which is why I said pew. Like the music, you're not gonna be overlapping music, so you can just do one song beginning to end, and then you'll change whatever the like audio source is, which I believe you can just say dot source change audio source JavaScript. So yes, you would just say like music dot source equals, and you can change it. So let's do me. So normally it would be me, but we're gonna change it to be pew. And then we'll try this. Yeah, so you'll notice it's still saying pew instead of doing the like Gregorian chant thing. Because we're changing the source of the audio before we play it. So there you go. That is, for the most part, what you need to know about audio. If you want to like chain audio one after another, then you need to figure out what I mean, there's a couple different ways. One way is, I believe you can check. I'm just gonna Google it. I don't want to like talk out of my ass. I know there's a couple different ways. Detect, song, and JavaScript. How about that? Oh, there's an ended event. Okay. Even better. So we would say, let's change this. Let's pew after we play this song, okay? So we're gonna make the Gregorian chant, we're gonna play that, but we're gonna make music have a listener on it called onEnded, and that's gonna be a function. And then when it ends, then we want to say, like, we're gonna make a new song or sound or like pew or whatever, new audio. This is gonna be res audio pew mp3, and then we're gonna pew.play. Okay, so what should happen here is we're gonna make the Gregorian chant thing, and then we're gonna add a listener. Adding the listener isn't actually gonna run this until the condition is met, which is when the song ends. So in order for it to end, we need it to play first. So when it hits the end, it should cause this onEnded function to run, and that will create a new sound, and it will play the new sound. So we should hear the Gregorian chant thing, and then there should be like a little bit of white space that we didn't trim off of that, and then it should say pew. So we're gonna refresh and do that. Pew. There we go, it worked. We got the pew after the chant. So using a combination of this like onEnded thing, you can kind of change things around. I believe we could even say like let music equal new audio, or we could say music. If we just change the source of it, so if we said like music.source equals res audio pew.mp3, then I think what's gonna happen is you might have the timeline still stuck at the end, and it might not actually play. Let's try that out. Pew, pew, oh, it, okay. So the reason that it kept saying pew is because we still have this listener on music. So when pew ends, it sets the source back to pew and plays it again. So we're in this infinite loop of just pew, 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 pew. But I guess that does work. So changing the source will set the timeline back to the beginning, which is interesting to note. But yeah, you can use this to set up like a jukebox sort of thing, like a playlist. So you have a list. Let's actually make like an example of that, because you know, I need to do something with my stream time, I guess. So let's say res audio me.mp3, and then we'll make another one for pew, right? So let's put that in there. All right, and now we can delete this stuff, and we are going to say, let's just take this out. I believe we can make it without a source, and then we'll say music.source equals, and we'll say playlist 0 for now, because that should pick the first one in the playlist, which will be this one, which is the chant, right? And then we have everything else set up to work properly for this. Let's make a let selected song equals 0. So then we can say selected song instead of 0. And when it ends, what we want to do is we want to say selected song plus plus, which is going to add 1 to selected song. And then we're going to say we want to set the source again to whatever song is selected. But we're going to run into an issue when this one finishes playing, because we're going to increase to be an index that doesn't exist. So we need to have a condition here that says if selected song is greater than playlist.length, but the length is going to be 2. So we actually need to say if it's greater than or equal to, then we need to say selected song equals 0, which is going to reset it back to the beginning, right? So we're going to try to go to the next song in the track, but if there isn't a next song in the track, we're going to loop back and play the first song again. So let's see how that works. The answer is it didn't, which is unfortunate. So let's see what we can do. Oh, we never told it to play. So music play. That's why, is we changed the source, but we never played the new song after we changed it. So let's refresh and try that again. Pew! Pew! Okay. All right. So it's working as I intended. So this would be a really quick, like, background music kind of function that you could make. It's just, I have a list of music that I have like in a folder stuffed away somewhere, and I want to play from the beginning to the end, right? I believe you could also do a sort of a like shuffle. You could oh, shuffle array is what I wanted. Damn, does not seem like there is a simple way to do this. But you could write a function that kind of rearranges the order of this. Or one thing that you could do if you want like a much more random sort of thing is we're going to generate a random number. So we're going to say the selected song is math.random, This is a good thing I can show you too, because this will show you how to randomize numbers. So we have math.random. That's going to give you some decimal point between 0 and 1. So it's going to be either 0 or anything up to the number 1. And then if we want to do this between two numbers, then what we need to do is we need to multiply this by the maximum number we want, which is going to be playlist.length minus 1, because we don't want the length to be 2, because 2 is too high. We want it to be, the max is 1 right here. And then we're going to subtract the minimum, which is 0. And then we're going to add the minimum, it looks like. And we're going to surround all of this with a math.floor. So let's kind of break this up a little bit so it's easier to see, I suppose. So we're flooring, which means we're rounding down, a random number between 0 and like 0.999 whatever. We're multiplying that by the playlist length minus 1, so that'd be 1. We're subtracting 0, so it's still going to be 1, and then we're adding 0, which is still going to be 1. So this is going to be any number between 0 and 1. Would this work? I get the feeling that this wouldn't do what I'm wanting, because I want to include. Okay, this says exclusive of the max, so we don't actually want to subtract 1 here. So then this would be 2, so it's anything between 0 and 2, but not including 2, and then we're rounding it down, which means basically it's going to be 0 or 1. So then 0 would be this, 1 would be this, right? And we can add more things to this array, and it's still going to work because we're dynamically using the playlist length here. So then we have the selected song being random, and instead of saying selected song here, we can just randomize the selected song again. So we could say like select song equals this stuff again. And then we could say selected song. I believe. Oh, no. We don't want it here. We want it in our unended before we do this. And then we don't need this check anymore because we're not incrementing it, we're randomizing it. I believe that this will do what we intended. So we're picking a random song that's in our playlist, and then we're going to play that random song when we click the button. Then when the song ends, we are going to randomize what song's going to play again, and we will play that randomized song. So the issue that you're going to run into with this kind of shuffling of a playlist is we're going to generate a random number. We'll say we got 1, right? So it's going to play this song. Well, then we're going to generate a random number. It can still generate 1 again. So you could get Pew and then Pew and then me and then Pew and then me and then me and then me and then me and then Pew. Basically, it can replay songs that it's already played. So that's one consideration to this sort of shuffle. I would call this like a purely random shuffle. Like it could repeat or whatever. But if you want like a smart shuffle, then one way you could do that is manage what has already played. Like keep track of the numbers that you've generated in like an array, and then say when you generate the number, see if it's in one of the generated numbers like playlist thing, and if it is, then try and generate another number again or something like that. That would make more of a smart shuffle. But you could also just randomize this array using some sort of like randomize algorithm. And then after you randomize it, then you could do the last method we did where you play from start to end, because then it's not going to play it in the order that you wrote it in the code. It's going to play it in whatever order it was after you shuffled it, right? So let's just give this a go. Pew, pew. Okay, so you can kind of see it's completely random. It played Pew twice, it did me, and then I think it did Pew, then it went back to me, and then I think it pewed again after that. Like it's completely random. We have no idea what song's going to play next. It could be the same song that we just listened to. So, but that is one way that you can shuffle a playlist like that. But generally, at least in my opinion, you're probably just going to do the first way that we showed, where you're going to say, like, this is the beginning of the playlist, this is the end of the playlist, and then when you reach the end of the playlist, just go back to the beginning of the playlist. Because then you know they're listening to every song one time before it loops back and they listen to it again. So hopefully you have enough songs in the playlist that they're not going to get bored of listening to the same song over and over and over again before it loops. At least that's my opinion. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there anything else I need to tell you about audio in JavaScript? That really is the majority of what you will need to know in order to make a game. Because we can do the audio playlist, kind of like I've been showing you. And then if you're like shooting a bullet or something, you can just do the same thing that we did with Pew, and it will what's the word? It will like overlap with your background music so long as it's a different audio source, right? So all you're doing is playing an audio source on top of an audio source in order to have background music, and then also have like shooting bullets. I guess one more thing I can talk about is changing the volume, because you probably will need to do that on some of your audio files. And it's really easy to do that. All you need to do is say music dot volume equals, and then this is a number between 0 and 1. So if you want 100%, it's 1. If you want 0%, it's 0. So like 0.5 would be like half volume. So let's cut this and let's try and get rid of the randomized stuff. I actually need that. We're gonna say playlist 0, and we're not gonna randomize it. Let's just say music dot what was it? current time is 0, and then we're going to play it again. So this should essentially, well, maybe we could just say play. I wonder if that would reset it. Let's try that. We don't need this anymore. I'm just trying to play the Gregorian chant over and over again. Okay. So that's working, but it is kind of loud, right? So before we play it, what if we say volume is like 0.3? So it'll be 30% volume. Now it's significantly quieter. It's still loud enough to be annoying, but it is significantly quieter, and you can lower this all the way to 0 or 0.1 or whatever, so that it's like very in the background. And the reason I want to show you this is because you oftentimes want to be able to control how loud the background music is. Like the foreground, like pews and all that, the sound effects, usually you want them to be like max volume. But a lot of times your background music is, as it's named, supposed to be in the background. So it's not supposed to be like blaring your ears out or anything like that. You mostly want to do like the sound effects full volume. Because if you have too much loud audio overlapping each other, then it's just like a sensory overload. So just play around with values, see what you think is comfortable, get your friends to play it, see what they think about it, if something's too loud or not, and then also make like a settings page. Try and make it so you can adjust the volume dynamically so they can pick whatever volume level they desire for both the in-game music and the in-game sound effects. So yeah. Still trying to think, is there anything else for JavaScript? I guess I should say like this volume and the like current time and all that stuff, that will work if the audio is on the page as well. You just need to grab it like this instead of dynamically generating it. But yeah, I think that pretty well wraps up audio for JavaScript. And we will be trying to do audio and images in JavaScript in the future. I'm gonna say that, but it does take some time, so we'll think about it. So images in HTML and JavaScript. We're going to get to Java in a minute because you're going to load your resources in Java pretty much the same way. And so I'm just going to do a segment of JavaScript and HTML, and then we'll move to a segment of Java, and we'll get it working in there. So an image, as you know, you can just make an image tag, say source, and then you can say image, and our image is Funa. So Funa PNG, save, refresh, and it didn't load, which is awesome because it's in res. And wow, we got a giant Funa-chan because that resolution is really high. So let's change the width to be like 300 or something like that. There we go. Now we can see the full Funa-chan. And this is like a really easy way to add images to the page, right? You just have an image, this is the resource, and then we set the width, and the height is actually dynamically scaling to match the width. You could also do like the height is 300, and then the width would dynamically try and match that. But if you say like the height is this and the width is this, then it's gonna stretch Funachan. So it will try to maintain the aspect ratio as much as it can, unless you give it some kind of attribute that breaks that rule. Then it'll give up and it will do whatever you told it to. Now, we did this in HTML. We can also do it in CSS. And CSS is kind of my preferred way of handling this stuff. So we'll just make an image tag selector. And then we'll say like width is like 300 pixels. And it achieves the same thing. It's just done in a different way, right? So instead of width equals 300, now its width is 300 pixels. And again, same rules apply. If I did height, it would try to maintain the aspect ratio. If I specified width and height, it would break the aspect ratio and do whatever I told it to. So there's a couple things you can do with images, at least that are on the page. One thing is you can do an image like this. Another thing that you can do is if we make like a div, let's make Funachan a height of like 200 pixels. Maybe a little bit more than that. Let's try 300 in height. All right, that's probably fine. You can still probably see her a decent size. Now let's make a div beneath the image. All right. And you might be like, why are we making a div if we're trying to make an image? Well, if we make this div have a background image, then we can give it a URL here. I'm completely screwing this up. So you have to say URL like this. And then this location, this is very important that you listen to this. This location is relative to where your CSS is located. It's not the HTML file that your CSS is being included in. It's the location relative to the CSS file. Very, very, very important that you make that distinction. But because this CSS is inside of our HTML file, then it is also in relation to the HTML file. So we're going to say res image Funa PNG. And we're going to refresh and we're not going to see anything. That's because this div doesn't have a width or height, right? So what if we say the height is 300 pixels and we'll say the width is like 700 pixels. We'll do something kind of crazy. We'll refresh and we can kind of see the corner of something here, right? Like that wasn't there before. Let's make a border on this of 1 pixel solid black and reload it. Okay, we know that that's the bottom corner of this div we just made, right? So why is that? Well, the div is acting sort of like a window right now. The div isn't as big as our image is. So the image is kind of being hidden and we're just looking at it through this little window. So what we can do is we can say, well, the background size, what if we said like 100% and we refresh? Okay, now the width seems to be better, right? But the height is not. Well, we could also do like 100% here. But that's gonna squish it all into one like box, right? It's gonna stretch it and try and get it to fit. And we can try and adjust the height or the width or something like that to try and fix the aspect ratio issue. Like we do like 200, 300. That looks closer, right? Maybe like 150-ish. Okay, that looks pretty much back to normal. But we had to change our div size in order to get that. So if you made your div the same height and width as the original image, then it's going to mimic the same like look as if you used an image tag. And one major difference between the two is if I right click this, you see save image as. If I right click this, you don't see that. You see save as, which is to save the web page itself. You see it's trying to save an HTML file. So a lot of websites do this to try to stop you from saving their images. They'll do it as a background image because the way the browser works, it's going to act differently if you right click on it. But we can do some interesting things if we do this div method. We can do like sprite sheets essentially. Because as you saw, we only saw like a corner of Funachan when we did it that one way, right? So what if I said the background size is 300 pixels and I think I did this backwards. Let's say 300 pixels and 150 pixels. Then it doesn't look like it's changed yet because we haven't adjusted the div. But what if I said I only want to see like the top of the image again, right? Let's say only the first third of the height. Now it's like cropping it down to be a third of what it was before, right? So if I had a sprite sheet that was divided into 3 sections, then I could say I only want to see the top part here, right? So then I can crop it like that. And then what I can do after that, after I crop it, right, is there's another value that I can use in CSS called background position. And I don't use this very often. So we're going to have to play with this, but let's just try some random numbers. Okay, so this does work pretty much how I expected it to. So if we have 0 pixels and 0 pixels and we refresh, then nothing's changed. This will shift it, I believe, to the right. Let's try 100 pixels. It actually looks like it shifts it to the left. And why is it duplicating? I'll show you in a second. So it shifts it to the left 100 pixels. So if we did like minus 100, now it's shifting it to the right. And if you don't want it to repeat like this, you say background repeat, no repeat, no repeat. The default, oh, okay. I guess it is to the left. Yeah, so positive will be to the right, negative will be to the left, it looks like. Yeah, that does kind of confirm that. So the default like behavior of a background image is if you run into the end of the background image before your div is done. So like if your div is larger than your selected area, we'll say like this. So this will be more space than our image has. If we don't have this repeat, it's going to try to repeat the image as often as it can. And for like a sprite sheet, we don't want that, obviously. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to bring this back to 150. And we're pretty much back to normal. I just need to set the position back. Okay. So then we can use the Y here. If I said 100, did that go up? I think that went up. Yes, that went up. So if you want to shift the background up like this, then it's a negative number. So we can see the first third of the image doing this. We can see the second third of the image doing this. Sorry, negative, this. And then we could see the last bit of the image doing this. So that is how you could do like sprite sheets or something. It's a little bit complicated because you have to mess with all these background position and size and make sure it doesn't repeat and make sure your div is the right size and stuff. But it is possible, right? And that's one thing I wanted to show you that's a benefit of using a div instead of an image tag. And I want to know, I actually want to Google image tag crop HTML. You cannot directly crop an image. Yeah, so it looks like pretty much the only way that you can really crop an image in HTML is kind of like this, by using like a div and then hiding it from outside the div. So yeah, I'm glad that there isn't something new I'm unaware of. So yeah, that's a major benefit of using like a div over an image tag. Now, for our Quest for a New Kingdom game, that sort of game setup where we're using page elements is the kind of game that you could use this sort of cropping and like character sheet sort of setup. If you wanted to do an image in a canvas, right? Let's take a look at that. So this would be, what we're about to do would be more of a like Cube Wars sort of setup. We'll give it an ID of canvas. We'll say let canvas equal document get element by ID canvas let can equal canvas get context of 2D. Okay, and then we're just gonna say can dot clear rect 0 canvas dot offset width canvas offset height. We're not gonna make like a game loop. We're just gonna try setting up a basic image because it's the same thing. We're just not doing it multiple times. The canvas is going to need a width and a height. And then just for funsies, so we can kind of see the canvas a bit more, let's say canvas background white. Border 1 pixel solid black. Margin top 15 pixels. So 15 pixels auto 0 auto, and I think we need to say it's a block level element if we're doing this. And body background black. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that's pretty much what I wanted. It's not centered though. because instead of margin top, we need margin. Okay, and we don't need the border if the background's black and the canvas is white. Okay, then we also said can fill style is blue, right? So we make a blue square instead of a black one. Okay, so we have a canvas. This is a very similar setup to what we had for Cube Wars when we did it in HTML and JavaScript. But all we did was use fill rect and this fill style in order to make all of our objects for that game. If we wanted to do a sprite, then I believe you could either, let's try this. Let's make an image on the page. We're going to say the source is res/image/funa.png, and that will add Funa to our page, right? I'm just going to say style display is none. And what that will do is hide Funa-chan. Technically, if we look at the page, she is still technically on the page. We just can't see her. And because she's still technically on the page, that means that we can still target this image so long as it has like an ID. And so we'll say Funa. So after we declare these references, let's say Funa is document get element by ID Funa. So now we have a reference to the image. I believe we can just draw it onto the canvas now. Let's try can.drawImage. The first parameter is going to be the image you're drawing. So we're going to say Funa, and then we're going to put her at like 1515. And then you can put a width and height as well. If you don't, it should just do the full size. So let's try and refresh this, and it does look like it did draw it to our canvas. She's really big though. One thing that you do need to think about is when you're drawing it on a canvas, it's not going to automatically adjust the image to an aspect ratio. You can't just say the width is 300 and it will autofill the height, or pick a height and have it autofill the width due to aspect ratio. You actually have to calculate that stuff yourself if you want to maintain aspect ratio. I don't really care at the moment. I'm just gonna say she's I'm gonna do a similar thing to before and say she's 150 by 300. And that gives us a pretty decent cutout of Funa from the image that we have hidden on the page. And let's move her a bit more towards the center. Let's say canvas offset width divided by 2 minus 75, right? Would that be, I think that's about half of 50, isn't it? And then for the distance from the top, maybe we'll just center her. Offset height divided by 2 minus what was it, 150, something like that. Okay, we've centered her. So this is the full image though, right? And we may sometimes want to crop the image for something like a sprite sheet, right? Well, this draw image function, I'm going to get rid of this cube. It's kind of bugging me. So this draw image function actually already has the capability to do cropping. What you're going to do is you're going to do the same function, but you're going to add more parameters to it. And I believe, let me Google this real quick to make sure. Canvas draw image. We're gonna say crop. So yes, it does work as I expected. So you're gonna draw the entire thing as if it were hold on, let me think. So you're gonna draw it as if it were already cropped to the section of the sprite sheet that you want to show. So if I said I only want to show the first third of Funa-chan here, right? Then I would say I only want to show 100 of the height, right? And right now that's gonna shrink her down like this because we haven't done the cropping yet. So if we want to crop, well, it's going to move into the image 0, 0 for now. So 0, 0, and we can kind of separate this with some space so that, you know, one's the image and one's the crop. And then we still wanted the full width of the image, right? Which was about 150. And then we only want the first 100 pixels of the height if we're cropping it. So we're going to say 100. Whoops. 100. And if we refresh, we don't see her anymore, which is, I believe, what we intended to do. If we comment this first one out, did I do that wrong? No way, that's wrong, right? Okay, it's just not highlighting for me. All right, if we refresh, she's completely gone, which makes me cry because that means it doesn't work the way that I thought it did. Oh. These are opposite. Okay. That makes more sense. So the first 4 after the image is going to be the crop of the image. And this actually makes more sense if I think about it. So we want 0, 0, 150, 100 of our image. And then we're going to draw that cropped version at this location with this width and height. So now if we refresh, it still didn't work. Oh, okay. I think because this is technically going to be the full resolution of Funa. So now we need to look up some image properties of Funa. Let's go and let's go check those out. I'm just gonna go look at the original. Show more options, properties. Is there like a resolution thing here? Okay. Her default dimensions are 2103, 42, 34. So if we do 2103 and 4234, 4234, then let's get a fourth of this ish. So we're gonna say like 1000. And then we're gonna draw it at this location with this width and height, right? Okay, now it's working as we desired. Kind of. I think we are still kind of smashing the image a bit. But if Funa's default resolution is 2103 by 4234, then this is how we would lay it out, is we don't want to go into the image at all. we just want to get the full width of the image, which is what we're drawing. And then we want to draw down a third of that, right? And we can move this around. We can go into the image as well, which you might need if you're doing like a horizontal sprite sheet. So let's kind of look at horizontal sprite sheet as well. If we had 4234 here, that's going to be the whole image that we're trying to fit into this small section, right? Let's try and put this back to like 300, so it looks a bit more like the whole image. And then let's try and cut into it and then only get like a sliver of the width. So if we say we only want the first like third of this, then we're going to need whatever this number is divided by 3 because we only want a third of it. And then at first, we're not going to cut into it at all, right? So that will give us the first third of the image horizontally. And then if we want to go to the next third, then here we can do 2103 divided by 3 because we want to move into the image a third before we cut out our third. So if we refresh now we see like the center of the image because that's going to be the second third, right? And then if we multiply this by 2, then we're going to cut in by 2/3. You could also view this as 2/3, and we're multiplying it by that. And so now we're 2/3 in, which means that the last third is going to be showing, right? And so you can do a combination of the vertical cut and the horizontal cut if you have a sprite sheet that's both vertical and horizontal. So let's say you have like a running animation. Let's see if I can open Paint. Is Paint just like ruined in Windows these days? We're about to find out. So we're gonna open Paint. We're gonna make like a quick little sprite sheet. We're gonna say like, oh, we have our character here, right? And then he's gonna do like a roll. So he's gonna do something like this, and then he's gonna be like kind of upside down or whatever. And then he's gonna be like kind of back, sort of like this, and that's cool. And then he's gonna end up back straight up at the end, right? So that's like a roll that he has. Well, then we also want like a jump. So we're gonna have like a he's like kind of crouching, sort of. And then he's gonna be like kind of stretched out a bit, kind of like this. I know I'm the best artist you've ever seen. And then he's gonna be up in the air. I should try to have these. Where's the select tool these days? This one? Should try and line these up a bit more so it actually looks more realistic. And then we have like sort of a jumped thing, and then he comes back down. So he's going to be back in this sort of situation. And then he's going to be like fully crouched again when he lands, right? So now we have like a 2-dimensional sprite sheet. If we were going to cut it up, we cut it up like this. And this would be our full image, right? So then let's say each of these widths widths are like 200 pixels. Each of the heights are maybe like 300 pixels. So something like that is like our measurement. Then some quick maths to figure this out, right, would be this is 0, 0, which is going to be here, right? Like these are the numbers that we're kind of looking at in Paint right now. So if we want the second image, then we need to jump to 200, 0. I know this is probably hard for you guys to see because it's pretty small, but I don't really know how to adjust shit in Paint. So we need to jump to 200, 0 because each sprite is 200 pixels wide, right? And then after we jump 200, 0, then we would want the width and height, which would be 200 in the width and again 300 in the height, right? So these are the numbers you would use. You'd use 200 here, you would use 0 here, you would use the 200 width here and the 300 height here. And then if you wanted, let's say like this sprite, well, you need to go down 300 to get to it. So we know our second number is going to be 300. And then similar to this one, we need to go in 200 because there's 200 pixels here. So 200. My handwriting is terrible. So this would be 200, 300. And then once again, your sprites are 200 by 300. So you would need the 200 for the width here and the 300 for the height here again. So it would be 200, 300, 200, 300 if you wanted this sprite. And then just to get it like, you know, deep in your brain, if we wanted to get this one right here, I'm such a terrible paint artist, then we need to go down 300, right? So the second number is 300. Anything on this second row is going to be down 300 if you've noticed that kind of consistency. And then we're going to need to go right into the image 2 increments of the width. So it's going to be 200 and 200, which makes this 400. So it'd be 400, 300 for this one. And then again, your sprite sizes are 200, 300. So it'd be 200. I was looking over the wrong thing. It'd be these two. So 200 for the width and 300 for the height, right? And that's how you would figure out the cropping for this stuff. And then where you want to draw it on the canvas, make sure that you're drawing whatever your sprite size is. So here would probably be like 200 and this would be like 300. And then this is just the position that it would be on the canvas. So it's not really that complicated, but you do need to work out some math to figure out which sprite you're going to be painting. And you can do an easy formula for this too that I was kind of trying to show you with this. Is it's how far, it's like which sprite you want. Do you want the first sprite, which would be 0? So we're looking at it like an array. Or do you want like the second sprite, the third sprite? So it's whatever sprite number that you want horizontally, right? So the sprite horizontal number you want, minus 1, because like we said, we're starting at 0. So if this is 1, then it's horizontal sprite 1 minus 1, which is 0. And that's going to give you your x. And then this is the sprite vertical number you want. Minus 1, of course, because we're starting at index 0. So if you want 1 vertically, your y would be 0. If you want this vertically, then we haven't added that part yet. Horizontally, we're going to want to cut in whatever our sprite width is. So it would be sprite width, and then times whatever you want minus 1 again. So it would be something like this, I believe. Let me run through the math real quick in my head. So we want the first sprite. So it would be 0 times all that stuff, no matter what, it's going to be 0. If we want the first sprite, then it would be 1 minus 1, or this would be 2 minus 1, because we want the second one. So it'd be 1. And then 1 times the width, which is 200. I think we just need to multiply by the width, like this. I don't think we need to make it super complicated. So then the third one would be reduced to 2, which would be 2 times the width. Yeah. So for your x position, this would be your math that you need. For the vertical position, I believe it's basically the same math, but it would be times your sprite height. So whichever one you want vertically, minus 1 times the height of your sprites. And then this is just simply your sprite height, or sprite width, sorry. And this would be your sprite height. And then this is x on canvas, which you can put it anywhere. Y on canvas, you can put it anywhere. This would be your sprite width, and this would be your sprite height. So just to like give you kind of an algorithm that you can go off of, this is the sort of math you would use to kind of traverse your sprites. And you can make this, you can make the like desired sprite stuff into a variable. So then you could skip through the sprite sheet as you desire just by changing this sprite vertical and sprite horizontal. So you could have the same draw function, so it draws the same image at the same location, but then you're just changing these variables in your like update loop or something to change which sprite is being displayed. And that's like the strength of a sprite sheet, is you don't need to load multiple images for one. You just need to display a section of it. And image loading is something I kind of wanted to discuss a bit. Get a quick look at this. I'm going to be probably deleting it. Let's save it somewhere, just in case someone's interested in it, you know? Sprite sheet calc, something like that. We'll save that. Maybe I'll put it on the GitHub somewhere. Not sure if I'm going to be uploading any of this to the GitHub. because I keep like deleting it and remaking it and all that stuff. Where are my streamer tools? Twitch. Show mod icons. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Ban whatever this bot is. All right. Because I keep deleting and showing you stuff, like this is kind of a logic stream that I'm trying to show you different ways that you could interact with these things. Because I'm not going to make like a 5-hour stream all about draw image, right? Like you can easily look up draw image and see all the different crazy things you can do with it. I'm just trying to help you see kind of how things are loaded into memory, things like that. I guess we can play some music, can't we? Been sitting in silence this whole time. So I'm just trying to show you some of the like maths that you'll be using to play around with like sprite sheets and how images load into memory and all that stuff. So if you have a reference to an image like this, and you're waiting for the DOM to load before you run your JavaScript, oftentimes this image will be loaded before you will try to use it. But something you'll notice if you do this a different way is if you are making an image dynamically instead of already having it on the page, we're going to say new image, and we're going to give it res image funa.png, right? Then we try and do the same thing, but let's not crop it. Let's just try and draw the whole thing. I think we said, I hope you didn't need that. I deleted all that. So if we do, we'll say 0, 0, 150, 300, you might notice it's not drawing. And I'm pretty sure that this should draw the way that we are, the way that we have it programmed. But I think the problem is that it's not actually loading the image before we try to draw it, which is a big issue. So let's try to open Google. Windows doesn't feel like giving me a taskbar anymore because it's just a fantastic operating system. And I don't appear to have a Firefox tab still open. So, load image in JavaScript. Let's see what Google says. Okay. All right. What Google says is we're going to do this, which creates an image in memory. And then what it wants us to do is say on load, we're going to do whatever we're going to do with the image, which in our case is going to be draw it on the screen, right? And we can delete all this stuff because we're only doing this once. And we can delete these comments because they no longer have to do with what we're talking about. Okay, so we're going to draw Funa at 0, 0 with 150 width and 300 height. And it still does not appear to work, Google. The reason for that, I believe, is if we log funa.width, it didn't even log anything. Maybe it's loading still. It is a big image after all, but because it's local, I feel like it should already be loaded, right? What if we do more what Google was saying? And we're gonna say funa.source is this. Okay, now it's working. That's interesting. So if we by default give it a source, then it's not gonna load the image. But if we give it a source later, then it loads the image. Okay, I see. So the reason it doesn't work if we put the source in here is because as soon as this runs, we've already loaded the function basically, or the image into memory. And so we haven't added this listener yet. So this is never going to trigger because this has already loaded before we're listening for it to load. So if we just make a blank image, and then we say when it loads, we're going to do something, and then we give it a source, then this listener is already in place. So there's no way this is going to load into memory before the listener exists. So it's important that you do it in this order if you're going to use this onload function. Something that I've run into with loading images in JavaScript is sometimes it will even run this onload function when the image isn't really finished loading. And that's really frustrating. So what I would do is I would have like we'll say like an array, right? And we'll call it like images. And we'll do it like this. And then we'll have like a source here or something. But I want to know when we can load these. Basically, I would loop through these and I would say basically make a new image, and then we're going to add this onload function, then set the new image to that source. But then in the onload, I would have a check for the natural width and natural height of the image that you loaded. So image natural width. Yes. So there's a read-only thing that you can say natural width. Sorry, this would be on Funa. And let's just log this. And then log this for the natural height, if I can type. And then we're going to say width and height. Okay. So now we see the natural width and height of the image that we're loading, right? Occasionally, like this is kind of rare, but I have seen it, you will attempt to load the image into memory, and it's really not fully loaded into memory. There's still some things that are being processed about it. Perhaps it's like metadata that's still loading or something. I don't really know. But occasionally you will get this onload function to trigger. And if the natural width and natural height are 0, then the image hasn't actually finished loading yet. So then I like having a check to say, like, if the natural width is 0 or the natural height is 0, then I like to create kind of like a stalling function. I'll have like a function recheck image. Sorry, that's supposed to be the name of the function. It'll be like recheck image or something like that. And then in here, I'll just say like set interval recheck image, and I'll put Funa in here. And then I'll say like in a second, check on the image. So then here we'll say like image as the parameter, and then we'll just keep checking the natural width and height. But if it is not equal to 0 or it's not equal to 0, then let's make a more global variable. We'll say let checker, and then we'll say checker is this set interval, and then down here we can say clear interval checker. So as we saw with like the game loop, we saw set interval creates an infinite loop where it just keeps running this function over and over and over again every second in this case, right? And we want to keep just checking to see if the image is bigger than 0. But if it isn't 0 anymore, we don't want to keep infinitely running this. So we need to have a reference to this set interval so that we can actually clear the interval. And when you clear the interval, it will stop running this function. So basically, we're just going to lock the browser until the image actually finishes loading, because this onload function isn't entirely reliable. And it can get really complicated to make an image loader that loads like several images. And then, you go to a new level, so you need to load new images or whatever. So you need to have some kind of loop that goes back and forth of like load resources, like images, and then it would be like draw images, which would be like you're playing the game, basically. And then you need to have like a like scenario change sort of situation. And during this scenario change, basically you want to like set all set all images to null or something like that. Try and remove the references to the images you've already loaded. And then you need to make sure that after you've unloaded everything, you go back to a load section where you're loading all of your resources again, and you'll load the new resources you need before you draw them and continue playing the game. So this is what loading screens are doing in your video games, is they're saying, I'm trying to load the images into RAM, but we're not quite there yet, so we need to like hang the game for a minute. And while we're hanging, we're just gonna have like a black background on our canvas or something like that. So we're not drawing anything, we just have a black screen. And then once we have loaded the images, we've cleared all the intervals waiting for the images or whatever, then we know all of the images we need are fully loaded into RAM and we can draw them. Then we're going to continue drawing the images and you can resume playing the game. So The scenario change would be like you enter a door or you like hit the end of a level and you're going to start a new level, something like that, where you're like fully changing all of the objects that are in your world. And so you're going to want to unload everything that you've loaded so far into RAM that you're not going to continue using. So like let's say like Funa-chan is my character sprite. If I'm still going to use the character on the next level, then I don't have to unload Funa. I can keep Funa loaded. I just have to unload like all of the environment and the enemies and all that stuff, and then reload new enemies and like level objects and things for the next level I'm going to be on. So just keep in mind what you're loading into memory and try to clear anything out that you're not actively using, because that's going to put a lot of stress on your game. If it's a web browser, you only have a limited amount of resources realistically in your browser for your web page. So if you go over that resource limit, it's possible that your browser will refuse to load more images. It might unload certain images that you don't want it to unload. It might start caching images or something, which could be even worse. Yeah, so just try to keep in mind what you have loaded into memory and what you are actively using, and they should be pretty much the same. There's like a few exceptions, but I'm not even going to go over those because those are incredibly rare. But yeah, that is loading images in like an on-page way and a way you could crop it if it's on the page, and then also how you would load images in JavaScript into memory, and then how you would crop it using like a canvas sort of way. But yeah, that is entirely that's everything you need to know about drawing images, really, for like games. So we are pretty much done with the JavaScript HTML section. We're gonna move on to the Java section, and we will try to load audio and images in Java. I just realized I might have made an oopsie with our audio files, but we will get there in a second. I have to go to the bathroom, so I'll be back in a minute. Okay. We are back, I think. So, we said we were moving to Java. I didn't think of anything I missed while I was on the turlet. So, I think we will move to Java now. We need Eclipse. And I'm going to show you two different ways, I believe, maybe more, that you can display images in Java. And then I think we'll do the audio after the image, because I might have to fix some of the audio files we made. Awesome. Zed did an update, so I put another shortcut on my desktop. So this was Cube Wars. We're not working on that anymore. So let's close out all these tabs. And we're just gonna make a new project for Java. And we're just gonna call it test project. I'm gonna leave all this stuff as it is and just say finish. So now we have a test project. We're going to make a new class. I like making, oh, wait. Before class, we're gonna make a new package. I like calling my main package core. We're going to add a class to that called main, and we'll add public static void main string args. And we're going to change our music playlist back to my anime music playlist. So, come back. I want this a little bit louder. Okay. All right. So we have this. Let's go and make a new package called GUI. We're gonna do a very similar setup to what we did for Cube Wars in Java. So we're gonna say a main frame here, and that's going to extends JFrame. Import, we're gonna add default serial number, public main frame, and set default close operation, JFrame dot exit on close, and we're gonna say this dot, and then this dot set visible true. We're going to this dot pack. After we pack it, we're gonna this dot set location relative to null, and super images and sound. How about that? Then in main, we're gonna say swing utilities dot invoke later. We're just gonna make a lambda, and we'll say main frame. We need to make it a singleton. Private static main frame instance. Oh my gosh. Public static main frame get instance. Return instance. Keep typing L instead of semicolon. If instance is null, then instance, I can't type today, is a new main frame. Okay, and then we're just gonna say mainframe dot get instance, And that should make our window. So there's two ways that I talked about we can make images. One is something called a JLabel. And we're going to make a new JLabel. And normally this is used for text. So we're just going to say hello in here. And then we need to add the JLabel to our frame. This, when we run it, it's still trying to run Cube Wars. That's cute. Could not find or load main class. I'm somewhat afraid when I created this Git. Okay, there we go. When I created this Git repository that it might cause some issues for us, but it looks like it's doing all right. So now we have images and sound, now that we're actually loading the correct program. And here we have something that says hello. That is our JLabel that we created here, and we added it to our JFrame. So this is the full size of this window here. Let's even try and make it a bit bigger. I don't know if it will respect this, but we're going to say set preferred size, new dimension, and we'll again just say 900 by 600, import dimension, and we will run it again. Okay, it did respect it. So our JLabel is now this big, and by default it's centered vertically and it's horizontally left justified. So my music keeps changing volume. So we have some text here. Text isn't kind of the objective of today, it's images, right? Well, in order to have an image, we need to be able to load it into memory, right? So there's two different ways that I can think of doing this. One is we're going to go get my image again. And we are going to put it on our desktop so we know where it is, right? If I right-click my desktop and say open in terminal, that's going to give us the location of our desktop. So I'm going to copy this. And if I, instead of putting hello in here, say new image icon, and I paste that location in here, import image icon, and I play, we don't see anything, which is unfortunate. We do need the backslashes. Let me see if I can figure out what I'm doing wrong here. Display image in JLabel Java. It's a new image icon. Okay. Yeah. It's telling me exactly the same thing that I did. We may need to relocate the image. An absolute location might not be something we can do. Okay. Right. Yeah, I think it's having a hard time finding. It's because we didn't put the image here. We're so silly. we just put the location. Okay, now Funa-chan is being drawn full size inside of this window, because the J label is the full size of this window, and then it's trying to maintain the aspect ratio and size of our image, right? So she is just massive, and we can keep adjusting the size of this window to try and show her in all of her glory, but we will never vertically show all of her because she is centered vertically and we do not have enough pixels of our screen to match that height. So, how do we resize an image icon? Let's look at that. Image. Okay. 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 Yep. Okay. All right. So it looks like we can make this image icon as its own thing. So image icon is this new image icon, right? And then we're gonna say image icon resized is icon dot get image dot get scaled instance, and then we can pick a width, a height, and we can choose how we want it scaled. So we're gonna say we want it to be 150 width, 300 height, and then image dot scale smooth. Okay, let's see what issue this is having. Cannot convert image to image icon. So this needs to be an image instead of an image icon. And then we can, Google, please cooperate. Yes. Then we can make a new image icon using this resized image. And what this should do is now we have a resized version of Funa-chan. So we loaded this super high resolution version, and then we're making a new scaled version of that image. And we're gonna wrap that new scaled version inside of an image icon. And then we're gonna put that image icon inside of a JLabel. So that's how we're drawing it to the screen like this. And that is one way to add images to your Java game if you're doing more of a like swing based, like J button, J label, J text field based sort of game. We haven't made one of those ourselves personally yet on stream, but I plan on showing you either a new game or possibly remaking Quest for a New Kingdom in Java, and we will use the swing library more like it was intended in order to do that. In order to make Cube Wars, we kind of had to force Swing to do some things that it wouldn't normally want to do. But that's because Swing wasn't really built to do the things we were telling it to do. So yeah, that is a JLabel with an image in it. Now you're thinking, okay, we did it in a way that we haven't made a game before. And I want to point out, we are loading this from a location on our hard drive. This is not going to be inside of the jar that you export. but there is a way to load it into like from the jar and then use it once it's loaded. And that's the way I prefer. I like my games to be completely bundled into one file that you just double click and your game runs, and it has all the images, it has all the code, all that stuff, all in one package. I prefer it that way. Some people prefer it this way, and you can do a relative location too. So if this was like one folder up or something, I could be like dot dot backslash backslash Funa or dot dot forward slash Funa, whatever. I'm pretty sure this will be interpreted correctly no matter what operating system you're on, because it's Java, and Java really makes stretches to be cross compatible between operating systems. I know that the joke is you write once, test everywhere. Personally, I have not really had that issue. I don't really get why everyone seems to have issues making things cross compatible. I like the way I've written things, it's worked perfectly on every operating system, Windows, Linux, and Mac. Like, it works exactly the same way. I don't know what everyone's issue is, honestly. So, if you program like me, you'll be good. That's basically what I'm saying. But you can do relative locations. This will be relative to the jar once you export it. So this would go one directory up from where the jar is, and then it would look for this PNG. But like I said, I don't like doing it this way. Anytime you're loading an image like this, you can just load it to an image icon. And then if you were drawing it to a JPanel, then you could just refer to this image icon. If you wanted to draw it to the panel, I'm going to show you the other way, which is the way that I prefer doing it. So we're going to delete all this stuff, and we're going to need a JPanel. So let's make us a JPanel class. We're going to call this, what did we call it last time? Main panel. We'll make this, we'll have it extends JPanel, import JPanel, add the default serial version, and then we're going to override the paint component. So public void paint component. Method of this JPanel again, similar to how we did with Cube Wars. We're gonna say super.paint component G, and then super clear, no, G clear rect 0 0. You probably don't need to do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Get width, get height, this dot get width, and this dot get height. Again, this is unnecessary, but I like it for clarity. And then we're gonna G fill rect and